Yeah, so welcome everybody. Just a little bit about myself. Sorry, I'm just doing one little tiny thing here, folks. Okay, we're good. So a little bit about myself. My name's Andy. So I head up the Australian and New Zealand division of Better Impact. I've been working with the company in one capacity or another for about the last 13 years. The company itself's been around a little longer than that. And I spent 32 years running and leading volunteer programs as a volunteer manager myself. So understand the needs and the nuances of what many people are looking for in this kind of environment. So as I said, the plan today really is that first and foremost, I want to give you a quick demonstration of the software, and then we will give you some resources as well beyond that in order to help you to understand what next steps you might like to take should you think that this software has some legs in terms of your own needs. And like I said, we will definitely have the opportunity for some questions as well. I guess the things I kind of just want to cover off on today is why use a database. Many people are still using Excel spreadsheets and other things as well. And so we will cover off on that a little bit, talk a little bit about why we think we're a good option for many organizations. Just outline quickly the two key products that we have in terms of the enterprise versus the standard edition. Look at our different modules very quickly. I want to play just a little snippet of some existing to see the side of things as well as the volunteer side of things. We have some time for some Q&A. So when organizations consider a database solution, there are often a whole range of different reasons that they think about that. The ones on the left here are the ones that are quite common. So there's just too much data entry to be doing into an Excel spreadsheet or something of that nature. There are too many disconnected tools, so something for people to apply, and something else as a CRM, and something else for the rostering, and something else for emails. And so they're looking to kind of consolidate that into one environment. They simply just do not any longer have enough time to lead and engage their volunteers effectively. And increasingly, we are seeing that as people come back from COVID, that they're revamping the team, but they have maybe come back on lesser hours than before COVID. A big one is the whole thing around the insufficient security of confidential data in the light of Optus and some of the other things that have occurred recently. That's become paramount, and of course a tight budget is often a big issue as well. So we believe that we have a solution that answers all of those. It brings all of the database into one place, and in particular I just wanted to talk about those two little black icons on the right hand side. They basically let you know that what we have is our ISO standards 27001 and 27013, which in and of themselves may not mean very much, but the fact is that they are the highest levels of certification and accreditation that you can have for the security and safety of confidential data anywhere in the world. So we meet all of the Australian privacy principles, as well as all those of Europe and those of Canada, where our data is stored. And we have, I'm pleased to say, a clean history in terms of the years we've been around. So it's always a big question that people have. Just a tiny bit about us. So we started kind of by fluke. Our CEO, Tony, was building a hospice in his hometown in Burlington in Canada. He was already running a small web business. He, as a part of chairing that committee, decided they could utilize some volunteer support. and that they might need a bit of software to help with that. And that was kind of our genesis in that sector. And we've been growing now for more than 20 years, since 2000. We are still a relatively small company. I think we're up to around about 25 employees around the globe, and we have offices here in Australia, in Adelaide, but also offices in USA, Canada, where our head office is, and also in London, England. Accordingly, we have customers right around the globe, and in addition to those countries, New Zealand is a big market for us. We've now launched into Portugal recently with a group called Pista Magica, and we work with Volunteering Ireland in Ireland. So we really do have a global footprint. Our specialization for the bulk of our life has been volunteer management software. So that's really what we've been focused on until 5 or 6 years ago, when we branched off to look at a few other products that volunteer involving organizations also often need. So we developed modules for donor for organizations that have donors and clients and members. And while we specifically won't be looking at those modules today, I'd just like to kind of throw that out there just in case any of you want to come back and ask me more questions about that at a later time. The final point there, in some ways sounds a little corny. We're a here to help company, but it's actually true. Our guiding, motivating factor is to make sure that people have a really good experience with our software, and that through that they can engage volunteers properly. So our support, we believe, is second to none. We have a 24-hour-a-day chat room. We have comprehensive help articles and video training videos, and a network of Better Impact people all around the world. But our motivating goal is actually to make sure that people have a good experience with us. We have essentially two different permeations of. So the first one is what we call as a standard account, which is represented by this group on the left, sub-account 1. And that is basically a single database, and that single database has within it all your volunteers and all your administrators. The idea being that you can then divide that group up according to activities they do or other factors, but everyone's in the same big bucket. For larger organizations where they want a little bit more division of their teams, so a good example might be a council where sub-account 1 here is the library team, and sub-account 2 is the recreation centre, and so forth. We have this version of the software which is called an enterprise system, which a little bit like an octopus that has tentacles. Every tentacle is actually a separate database, but then at that head level, administrators are able to do things globally, whereas administrators in a single sub-account can only do things with their own individual team. Importantly, you have unlimited levels of administrators in our software. We don't charge you extra for those. And you also have the ability to create limited level administrators, where in some programs you don't want every administrator being able to do everything in that environment. Yes, so this is just an outline of those 4 products that we have. The important thing with these 4 products is member impact and donor impact can be kind of standalone. Members, obviously, for organizations that have members as well as volunteers, and donor for organizations that have donors as well as volunteers. Whereas client impact works very slightly differently in terms of the fact that it's really designed for programs where the end recipient of volunteer service is typically going to be like a respite care program or a friendly visiting kind of program. And the way that works is you have records in the database that represent your clients, records that represent your volunteers, and then you can actually connect them and do a whole bunch of things within the software. Like I said, I'm not going to focus on that today, but if that is of any interest to any of you, please reach out to me after today and we can certainly show you the client impact module a little more. All right, I thought it would be helpful just to hear from a couple of existing members. Hopefully the sound travels out of this. So let me push the button.
Hi, I'm Moana from the Cancer Society of New Zealand's Wellington Division. I've been using Better Impact now for 9 years in over 2 different organisations, and I love it. Over this time, the system has grown with the changing needs of volunteering, and there are regular updates to the system. For me, the favourite feature is being able to look up a volunteer quickly, to see a photo of them, to acknowledge any milestones such as their anniversary with us or their birthday, and being able to track easily when a qualification needs to be updated. I can't rave about the system enough, but it has definitely assisted my team and I to be more present and active with a large volume of volunteers and to support our engagement with them in a seamless way.
Hi, I'm Victoria Banzi. I'm from Uniting Care Queensland. I've been using Better Impact for just over 5 years now. I would have to say my favourite thing about Better Impact would be the flexibility. I've used it in several organisations, but the flexibility meant that the organisation where I started with 0 volunteers through to Uniting Care now where we have over 6,500 volunteers, I could comfortably use Better Impact and make it my own in all those occasions. So I would say far and away that's my favourite feature. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Matthew Taylor from City Australia in South Australia, and I've been using Better Impact for the last 12 years and love it. For me, its favourite feature is how it can be used as a communication tool to keep volunteers informed about their volunteering. Because Better Impact has been designed with volunteers in mind, it is easy to use and volunteers love it.
Hi, I'm Jodie Batchelor. I'm the Volunteer Engagement Manager here at Austin Health. I've been using Better Impact since about 2016, 2017, and I absolutely love it. My favourite part of the system, and it's really hard to actually just come up with one thing, but I would certainly focus on the personal profile reporting. You can fully customise it to get as much data as you need, as much information as you need, or as little as you need in that one report. It's incredible.
So just a few little quick testimonials. I didn't prompt any of those people, but I always find it interesting that they all came up with really completely different things that they were raving about. So the software is really flexible and meets a lot of different needs. So let me jump in and show you around. So what you should be seeing now is the homepage that you will see as an administrator in the software. Let me just do that. So as I said, the software is really designed to be an end-to-end volunteer management system. So starting right at the beginning, what it's designed to do is to advertise the opportunities that you have available and then carry on that journey with the volunteer right through their life cycle. So I'm going to begin at the beginning. I should just explain what we're looking at here is the view that you would see as an administrator when you are logged in to a single standard account. So this is not an enterprise environment, it's a single standard account. So I just want to quickly click on this button here and do a couple of quick little things. And what I'm bringing up now is this fictitious organization's advertising page, for want of a better name. So the idea would be that you would have a button on your website, you would have a link that you'd pop into your social media feeds, whatever that might be. People would click on that, it would bring them to a fully branded page that looks something like this. Your banner, your colors, your images, your wording. And then we're going to show them a list of all the things that are currently vacant where we're trying to recruit. In this example here, we have about a half a dozen things that are currently being recruited for. And one of the things that I really love about these advertisements is that they can be switched on and off by you in real time. So it's not like you have to go to the webmaster in the IT department and ask for something to be taken down because you've now tick a box, it's done. You re-tick the box, the ad is back there. You are in control and not having to rely on a third party that might work for you. Obviously, you can link in here to your socials. You can pop your mission statement in here. And then you can fashion your application forms so that as people apply, you start to gather those applications. In a single account, you have access to access to 3 different application forms. So we have organizations where application form 1 will be basically an expression of interest, very abbreviated, just enough to let them know that the person looks like a suitable candidate. And then from that point, they will maybe send a link to the second application, which asks them all the questions they were not asked the first time. Or other organizations will actually fashion their 3 applications, you know, 1 for students, 1 for regular volunteers, 1 for corporates, for example, where different questions can be asked of those different cohorts. The app itself is only 2 pages long. Page number 1 is contact information. Page number 2 is anything else that you want to learn about that person as a part of the application process. That leads me to a really important point, and that is that about 90% of all the fields that you're going to see in this software are fields that are 100% built based on your own needs. So there's not a whole lot of fields that we have built in that you kind of have to live with. There's a few of those, but not many. But you can use your own acronyms and terminology and language and drop-down lists and all that stuff so that it makes sense to you and to the people you're trying to recruit. The other thing that I'll just highlight here is that the very first thing here is that the volunteer is asked to create a username for themselves and also a password. So our software is very much developed on the premise to have some control over their volunteering. We don't want them to be passive, we want them to be active. And in being active, they are more fully informed and they are actually picking up a lot of that busy work that we talked about before as being a part of the problem. So I'll show you a little later how what the software looks like from the volunteer point of view. And volunteers can access their profile either from a desktop or via a mobile app as well. As they hit submit, they then rock along on the homepage of an administrator, and they will show up as a brand new applicant. At the same time as they hit submit, they can also receive a personalized email from you. So, dear Andy, thank you for applying with Writing for the Disabled. Here are the next steps in our application process. You can also receive emails to alert you that there are new volunteers as well. So our new applicants are in here. We can jump on in there very quickly, have a look at who. We can see any information that they have provided as a part of the application process. You can flick them an email, done or given them a phone call, being an applicant to someone that is currently in process as we do their vetting and their screening and their training and other things we might need for them to do. Beyond in process, you'll see there are some other circles there, one being accepted, which is our regular kind of day-to-day team. We've got 2 statuses for inactive. They are short and long-term inactive. And they are typically people that, you know, are away on holidays or they've had some surgery or they're traveling through Queensland or whatever it might be. And then long-term inactive might be people that, you know, they only help you once a year with the Easter fundraiser or, you know, that kind of thing. And then importantly, we have this archive status, and archiving is where you can park people that are no longer with your program. Now, we don't ever bill you for archive people. We also don't ever bill you for people that are applicants or in process because you may never accept those people. You only ever get billed for the people that are currently active. But those statuses play a really important role in the database because they really help you to track that journey of volunteering. A couple of other quick things on the homepage. Sitting around these numbers are a whole bunch of what we call system alerts. So some of these are really simple little things like, here's a list of all the people having a birthday this week. So right from here, I can flick them all an email. That email would be personalized. I can set up an email template just to show you how easy it is. So there we go, choose the happy birthday one. So now, hi, Rudy, hi Galia, hi Caden, have a happy birthday, hit send. Those 10 people now have a personalised birthday email. Same with anniversary dates. So some of these things are automatically created and make that part of acknowledging volunteers really simple. At the bottom of the numbers, we have a whole range of other alerts. And I'm not going to go through them all today. I just want to highlight a couple of them. So one of them is this thing called qualifications, and you'll see there are 2 alerts around that. I'm going to explain what qualifications are in detail in a moment. But one of the key functions that a qualification does is tells us or reminds us that somebody has something that is that needs renewal or updating. So you think driver's licenses, police checks, working with children. This case list already has qualifications that have expired already. So again, if we want, we can take some bulk actions here and email them all or do other things with them. Or we can go back to the home page and see that the other qualifications alert that was sitting there. All right, so expiring qualifications tells us that those same kind of qualities are coming up for renewal rather than already expired. So that assists as well. There are a range of other things we can do on this page. We can save searches that we need to undertake on a regular basis, whether that be sending an email or looking up a list of people or generating a report. We can definitely do that, and that just makes these things now accessible at the push of a single button. And as one of the testimonies said, we do regular updates of our software, and our clients are always rolled just directly into the most recent version. So there's never any additional costs for that. Just to quickly show you a volunteer record, because that's obviously where a lot of work is going to occur. And I won't go through all of these tabs, but I'll talk about the key ones. So what we see here for Jim is his dashboard page. This gives us a summary of Jim's involvement with us, tells us the hours he's contributed, what he's contributed hours towards, and again, all of this will automatically appear. We also have a badges system built right into the software, and the badges system recognizes volunteers' hours, it recognizes their years of service, it recognizes qualifications they might have, and it can also recognize what we call feedback. Feedback are those metrics that we ask a volunteer to record at the end of a shift. So for example, how many kilometers did you travel today? How many people were in the group? Was there an incident today? And if so, please report it here. So, so badges can be associated with some of those metrics as well. The contact page is contact information, but it's these 2 areas here that are 100% customized based on your own needs. I might start with qualifications simply because we had a chat about those already. So qualifications play 2 very distinct roles in the life of the database. The first thing is that it tracks expiry or renewal dates, as we discussed. The other thing that qualifications will do, though, is they will act as a not negotiable. So they are a skill or a quality or an attribute that a volunteer categorically must have in order to undertake a particular role. So imagine you're creating a role for a driver. You'll be asked, are there any not negotiables that go with driving? You say, yep, you've got to have a driver's license. You attach that to the job. You also attach that here in Jim's profile. The software will then do 2 things in relation to that qualification. First of all, as an administrator, it will shortlist suitable candidates for you and say, hey, Helen is able to drive the vehicle. because her driver's license, she has a driver's license and it is current. But more important is that when we go into the volunteer view of things, we can control which volunteers get to see which opportunities based on both their status and based on their qualifications. So I might only want volunteers who have the status of accepted and a current driver's license to see my driving jobs, and an applicant with a driver's license won't see that, or an accepted person without a driver's won't see that. So you get to really control which team members get to be considered for which opportunities. So they play a really important role there. And again, I'll just reiterate, they are 100% customized by you and your needs. The custom field area, again, 100% customized. You control the headers, you control the custom fields, and you control how you capture each field of data. So we have 8 different ways we can capture data. So short and long text boxes, date and number fields. We can have simple yes, no drop-down boxes, customized drop-down boxes with whatever options you want in them, check fields, checkbox, and we can have fields where you're able to upload a document that relates to that volunteer directly into their profile. So it's very flexible, and really importantly, every single one of these becomes searchable. So when you're starting to want to generate reports, for example, on maybe gender or where people live or any of that kind of stuff, or just simply who has got a particular, who does have a driver's license and who doesn't. Every one of these is searchable, and you can very quickly find that group of people. And then you can use the same search mechanism to email or text people as well. The other couple of things about these custom fields is you can handpick as many as you want to show on your application forms. And then typically organizations will also have a bunch of them that are created really for back of house use. So, did I contact the referee? What do they have to say? Has their police check been sent? Have they been given the handbook? All of those kind of things can be tracked in here as well. So that's custom fields and qualifications. The other field I'll just touch on really quickly while we're here is the communications tab. So I can very quickly email this volunteer directly from his profile. I can leave personal notes for this volunteer to see when they log in, and you'll see that in a little while. A history of emails and text messages will be recorded in here as well. And importantly, this is where we can also leave confidential notes for this or about this volunteer that only the administrators will see and will be invisible to volunteers. So that's a fairly handy tab as well. I might jump in and start to talk a little bit about the jobs we want people to do in rostering, because I know that that's always a really big part of any bit of software. So we call volunteer jobs activities in our language, and they created a little bit like those custom fields and categorize these. So, for example, there's boards and committees jobs. Here's our admin roles. Down a little further, a guest services group. You have, for example, events as well. So here are all the jobs that make up this event. So when we create an activity, there are a couple of different versions of activities. One being what we call an unscheduled. And an unscheduled activity is kind of like a chairperson or a newsletter editor, where we require that role, but we really care when they are doing the job. So I don't care if the chairperson's working on the board agenda at 3 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock on a Monday morning in the office, as long as they fill their job and the job is being filled. That's all I care about. The other roles, though, like an information booth attendant or an East Gallery attendant, are date and time specified. And so we call those scheduled jobs. And when we build those jobs into the software, we get to tell the software, hey, this happens 7 days a week, 9 to 1, 1 to 5. We need a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 3. And we can kind of set all of those parameters when we create the role. Once we've created the roles, there are 2 ways that volunteers can become associated with a role. One way is that we can very quickly give a role to a volunteer. So this is ideal, particularly where you might have the odd volunteer who is not very tech savvy or might not be up with this, or potentially where you want to ensure that you have kind of key, more experienced volunteers rostered on key shifts. So all that you need to do here is through the volunteers record, you would come in here, you would choose the activity that you want to give to them. So in this case, let's say Jim is my regular Thursday 9 a.m. person. I can just filter that out to show me only the Thursday 9 o'clock shifts. And I can kind of put him on the regular 9 o'clock shift for the next 12 months if I want to do that. Then also through his record, I can see what is coming up for Jim. I can remove him if he can't help on any given day. And I can even generate a roster, a personalized roster just for Jim, in this case, just for the month of February. And if he has an email address registered, I can flick that to him as a PDF via an email. So administrators can give volunteers roles. That's really important to understand. As I mentioned, there are 2 ways. The other way is a volunteer can log in, and if we've allowed them to see the opportunities that we have, they can also sign up for things and put themselves on the roster. Again, I'll show you that view in just a little while. But the important thing that I really want to stress here is it need not be one way or the other. And more often than not, there is a bit of a hybrid model in use where administrators will put key people into positions and then they'll open that up and volunteers will log in and fill all the gaps around those key positions. So that hybrid model is often what many organizations use. Just while we're talking about rosters, so we're looking at personal roster here, we've got our shifts built into the software and we've got volunteers assigned. Under the report tab here, we also have a whole range of different roster reports as well. So a similar roster to the one we're looking at in Jim's profile is one that we can develop. I'll do West Gallery, and of course, we just have to do February. So now we can see the whole West Gallery roster for the whole months. We can see who's on what days, and we can see where we have gaps. In addition to these calendar kind of views, there are other rosters we can generate. I'll just give you an example of one of those. So this one's showing all the categories and all the jobs that are happening each day in this organization. We can see the name of the jobs, and then we can have some contact details against the volunteers if we want to do that as well. So, excuse me, there's a whole range of those. The point that I want to make here is once we've built the rosters in and we've populated it, the software does the hard work for us and generates these rosters. So that's important to understand. The the other view I just want to show you, and just forgive my voice, folks, I'm just getting over a cold. So it's good to be able to see who is on the roster. But the other thing we need software like this to do is tell us where we have gaps and where we need to focus our work. And so we have this assign area where we can get a snapshot of that. So I'm just going to look at our guest services area. And I'm going to have a look at tomorrow. So while this is a busy looking page, what we see here are all the jobs that are happening tomorrow. Over here, we can see when they're happening. Running down the left-hand side of the page. And what these are, at a glance, is how we're tracking. So a tick basically says, go grab a coffee, rest up, you're doing well. An exclamation mark says you've got a bit of work to do with these jobs. So where we have a tick, for example, this top one here, now that I've got people assigned to this role, I can very quickly see who those people are. I can dig right back into the record if I want, or I can take bulk actions if I want to do that as well. So even from here, I can be manipulating all of that. Excuse me. Just going to have a drink. Where we don't have enough people, if we take this example here, and I'm not going to go into great depth with all the numbers on the right for the purpose of this, but what I can see at a glance is it's telling me I actually currently have 6 people on my backup list for this shift. So by clicking on the name of the shift, I can very quickly go off and I can find the people that are on the backup list. And then I can either, again, reach out to those people, or I can just assign them one at a time or in bulk. So now over here, we have a couple of people assigned. When they next log in, they would see that. And again, or alternately, I could quickly flick them, an email just to tell them I'll put them onto the roster. But essentially what this page is designed to do is help us to stay on track of what's coming up and where we need to focus our attention. So 2 other quick things, and then we'll have a look at the volunteer view. I started to touch on rosters, and so I talked about the reports, and I talked about the roster reports. What we also see in here are some other reports. So hours can be logged in the software by volunteers or by an administrator. And we have a range of time clock mechanisms whereby volunteers can log in and out as they leave on a tablet or a computer or using an app on their smartphone. And once hours are in, there's obviously a lot of hours reports we can also track. So this is an hours by category report, just to give you a quick little taste of what these can look like. I'll just do last year will do. So here we see all the different categories, and we see the number of volunteers that contributed these hours, and then we have the numbers here at the bottom. So obviously guest services gave the most, but taking on hand, it's not just the numbers that we get, it's also some graphics that we can cut and paste into reports and things as well. We can also do hours by activities, hours by volunteer. There's a whole bunch of these that are built right into the software and can be really helpful for your records. Not only, again, does this tell us how many hours people have given it, it tells us how many times they've made an hours log entry as well. The other thing that we can report on is feedback. And I mentioned feedback as being something that a volunteer tells you about at the end of a shift, and where they tell you things that are largely numeric in value, so how many, you can generate quick and easy reports based on that as well. So not only are you measuring hours and visits, you're also measuring what volunteers have achieved while they've been working with you. Finally, I just want to touch base on our e-learning module. So we have e-learning built right into the software. The way that this works is that you create some content for volunteers to be able to see. So that could be text, it could be images, it could be video, it could be a link to a PowerPoint presentation. and volunteers go into their homepage, they log in, they watch or read or learn about that, and you then have a series of multiple choice questions and answers that they answer to prove that they have understood that content. When they submit that, they pass it. What will happen is one of those qualification fields will automatically be updated in that volunteer's record, and automatically be notified that a person has successfully completed that particular e-learning. So that is also a pretty neat feature as well. All right. Let me quickly views and show you what a volunteer would see if they're logging into the desktop version. So volunteers will enter by myimpactpage.com, or they have a mobile version of this. So again, just to highlight that this page for your volunteers will be fully branded to match your organization's branding, your own banner, your own colors. Pierce, my volunteer here, can get a summary of his hours. He can see the shifts that are coming up for him. Can see any badges that he has attained. Here's a personal note the manager has left for him. And here's kind of news that's happening around the program. So when he logs in, he's up to date. We have a lot of organizations now who have replaced their physical newsletter with an electronic version through Better Impact. Through here, you can share files with your volunteers where they can access those. And then there's a whole bunch of other things they can do in here as well. So the My Profile area is a place where volunteers can keep their contact information and other information that we want them to be able to see up to date. They can access those e-learning modules, they can see their badges, and they can do a range of other things in here as well. So it's about putting them back in control of all of that stuff. The other thing that they are able to do through their contact tab is, when it opens, they can actually subscribe themselves to receive a once a week automated email that will send them the next 2 weeks worth of shifts. Or if they use electronic calendars like Yahoo, Google, Outlook, they can subscribe and have their next shifts automatically synced with their electronic calendars. Looking at the opportunity list, and again, I'll reiterate, when Pierce logs onto this page, he is seeing a bunch of opportunities, but importantly, he is only seeing opportunities that we have allowed him to see based on the qualifications that we have set up with each of these jobs. So if I just choose something like emergency department here, he can learn a little bit more about that, and then he can see where he's already on the roster. He would the word full if we already had 2 people on some of these jobs, or he can go in and he can sign up and take a shift, again, because we've already kind of pre-vetted him to be able to do that. Also in here, he can see his own upcoming schedule, which is important. We can choose whether we want a volunteer to be able to remove themselves from a shift or not, and you can determine how far in advance of a shift they're allowed to do that. And then just to do for a volunteer can also download their own roster if they want to do that as well through this page. It is one of the places that a volunteer can log hours if we want to work through here. So that's important, and they can see a bit of a summary of their hours, and they can also access some reports about their involvement. So they get a bit of a summary of their 2023 hours, their lifetime hours, and again, importantly, they can download that information if they're trying to find paid work or take it to a potential employer. And then finally, we have a contact tab where you can determine which administrators a volunteer can contact through this page, and then they can communicate with people in that way. So that's a pretty quick run through of everything, but hopefully gives you a broad overview of the kind of key parts of the software. What I'm going to do now is just see if there are any questions that anybody has.
Yeah, hi Andy. Thank you for that. I'm Brad. That good presentation. Thank you very much. One question I did have was if you've got any sort of tools and utilities around requirements gathering. So when we're going to sit down and work out the configuration and what we need to implement, if there's a standard set of sort of forms or anything we've got to use to do that.
Yeah, so we don't have kind of a standard set because every organization has their own unique needs. But one of the things that you can purchase is our support in the setup phase. And so if you wanted that, then the way that we would typically do that is ask you to send us, hey, what is the information you already capture? Do you have existing application forms or induction checklists and those kind of things? We can then take those and pop them into the account and then work with you to make sure that they're looking. Or I know from our team here, we do have kind of a dummy account that we've created that has a series of really common fields that we have shared with other people that are kind of just don't know where to start, but they want to do their own builds. So we say, well, look, you know, this might be a guide to the kind of things you might want to be building in there. Does that help?
I think that, yeah. So I mean, those sorts of guides would be helpful. And what would an engagement like that look like if we needed your help?
Yeah, so basically the way that we work is, like I said, we would basically say, send us all that information. We would do that initial build, and then we would connect with you to do a walkthrough, and we'd say, okay, Brad, here's what we've done. Here's what it looks like. You would have some access into your database account at that point. And then once we had done that initial walkthrough, we basically let you loose on the work that we've done, and you kind of work through it and kind of pull it apart with a fine-tooth comb, and then come back to us and say, look, can we change this? Can we get rid of that? Hey, I forgot to send you another form. We do a secondary build, and then once we're happy with that, we hand that over to you.
Yeah, I figure that's just charged based on the amount of effort, like however many hours.
It's a set fee. So in a standard account, it's $275.
Okay.
Yeah, just a one-time cost. In an enterprise environment, it's $400.
It's really good. Excellent. No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Other questions people might have?
Yeah, hi Andy, it's Fiona. I've got a question, but before I ask it, one thing I'd say to Brad, who wants to do some requirements gathering, having worked in that space for years, don't think about the system. Get together with the team and ask them what they want, what sort of things they want, and then get together with Andy and go, how can I make the system do these things? You'll get a far, far better outcome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've done a few before as well. Yeah, define the process, not the tool.
Yeah. You really
absolutely
tie your hands behind your back if you go back to front.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, that's a good point.
But my question was, and Andy, I know we haven't used this much yet, but my question, if I'm asked a question like, can you find me all the volunteers who have these specific characteristics? Can I go to reporting and pull out specific things about the volunteers that I have, maybe age, maybe location, maybe a particular skill, and just pull that out in a single report?
Absolutely. So let me quickly share again. The short answer is, as long as you have built a field into the database, you can report on it. There is no dramas with that.
Yeah.
So just to illustrate that really quickly, there are a couple of searches just going to search criteria. Great. So the point I was going to make is this is our custom field headers. So to answer that question, any field at all we can search by. So it might be something in the About You area, and it could be something like gender. And so I can look for all the males, all the females, prefer not to say, or equally, I can say, show me all the volunteers who don't have anything recorded yet in that field. And then I can follow up with those people so that we have fully populated data. So that can be really important. And then if that's the first search I want to do, I can then add that to other searches.
Gotcha.
You know, so I could then add that to, oops, messed that up. But I could add that then to marital status or suburb or whatever, and we can do these really long and protracted.
Right. So you're under users, not reporting, is that right?
No,
So
so this I'm just doing a simple search.
Oh, search. Gotcha.
Yep. And then the other kind of reporting that you can do is what we call a raw data report.
Oh, yeah, I did that one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I found that one.
So a raw data report will allow you to hand pick any field or field that you want to generate into a report. So, you know, I might want to pop these 3 fields into a report, and I can then export that to Excel, or I can view that inline. And then I can manipulate this information in here, however I want to do that. So it's very powerful, and you can use these tools over here to do pie charts and all sorts of stuff. So the reporting
So what I'm
mechanisms
seeing is
are really powerful.
so what I'm seeing is we potentially aren't capturing the sorts of fields that the CEO perhaps wants. So that's an easy fix.
Yep. So
Cool. Thank you.
yeah, so as long as the field is built in, you'll be good to go.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Other questions?
More a comment than a question, Andy. In our particular situation, the system obviously is set up for humans, but we would be very tempted to talk about whether or not we want the hierarchical and more expensive enterprise approach. But what we might be doing is actually making each one of our horses a volunteer on the database, with the qualifications being things like their routine vaccinations or whether or not they're fit, et cetera, which expands the software, but it looks like it's extremely easy to do.
Yep, and you're not the first person to suggest such a thing. We have clients that have pets as therapy dogs that are in the software as volunteers for that very reason. So,
Andy, Helen here. How easy, if we change our headings on our Excel spreadsheets to match the Better Impact headings, how easy is it to import the data?
yeah, so data import is pretty simple. We prescribe, so there are, just to talk about data import, there are 2 elements to that. So we have what we call a base import, which has us create a base profile for each volunteer and populate that profile basically with contact information. That and this is kind of into the costs, which is the next slide. But that's a standard. It's $110 to have that done. Then if you have other fields that are not contact information, so think of something like emergency contact person, emergency phone number, we can import those at a one-time cost of $22 per field, regardless of whether you've got 50 volunteers or 500 volunteers. That's just a one-time cost to do that import work. So basically with the base import, we have a standard Excel spreadsheet that we would send to you, and we would say it needs to meet this criteria. system's a bit fussy and things have to be formatted in a particular way.
Yep.
But it's not rocket science. And then if there are other fields of information, as long as understand what format that information's in, we can make sure it's built into the software correctly, and then we can do that import as well. So we do imports all the time. They're not too difficult.
Thanks. Okay.
No problems. Other questions?
It's Helen again. How savvy do you have to be to create your own reports?
Oh, not savvy at all, really. Once you understand how to do a search, you can do a report. And then one of the things I quickly showed you on the homepage is once you've generated some of those reports, you can save them for future use. So you only even really need to work it out once and save it, and then you've got ongoing access to that same data, and it will always be updated. You'll always have the most recent results. And I mentioned this right at the outset, but we have a range of support and help in place. So that does include a chat room that is live and is available 24 hours a day. We advertise it as 24 hours a day by 5 days a week. Here in Australia, we benefit from 5 o'clock Friday afternoon in North America being Saturday lunchtime here. So it's more like 5.5 days here. We keep a bit of an eye on it over weekends, but basically anytime during your working week, if you've got questions about, hey, I'm just trying to nut out how to do this report, you can jump in the chat room. One of our team members will be there and we can set you on the right path.
Yeah, it's Fiona again. I used them a fair bit in the early days, and they are fabulous. I'd really recommend anybody using them.
Thank you, Fiona. We do try hard.
Do they have remote access, or it's talk you through it?
So it's a bit of both. We can actually imitate you in your software and have a look at what you're experiencing. Particularly if you're experiencing a difficulty, we can make sure that it's not the system, that there's something going on. Or we can screen share, or we can jump into your account and circle things and send you a screenshot. There's a whole range of different things that we can do.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. So costs and pricing are always one of those big ticket items that people are keen to learn about. So we don't have any secrets there. So I just want to share with you our pricing page. If I come back to here and jump across to, oops. So on our website, on our Australian website, we have a pricing tab in here. And on the pricing tab, there are a couple of tools there that are helpful to you. So first of all, we have a simple little pricing calculator that shows up here on the right. Our pricing is based on two things. There's an annual fee per account. So in an enterprise, there'll be an annual fee for each sub-account in your enterprise. And then there is an annual fee based on the number of active volunteers. So again, just to give you a sense, in a standard account for, let's say up to 100 volunteers that are active, you're looking at about $5 per volunteer per year. In an enterprise, let's say it was 3 sub-accounts with roughly the same number, you're looking at a little more, but you're still under $1,000 per year. So that's where you can get a quick snapshot. If any of you, and this will kind of run you through the variations between our standard accounts and our plus accounts. Plus comes with a few extra bells and whistles at a slightly higher cost point. But also on this page, it's worth noting that there's this green button here where you can create a quote. And what this page will allow you to do is, again, punch in the numbers that you want. So again, let's go a standard account with 50 volunteers. or 100 volunteers. But then it'll walk you through all the other choices that you might have when you're trying to determine what that first invoice might look like. So do you want the plus option? Here's what that involves. Do you want any of our support? So would you like us to help with setup? Would you like us to do an import? Would you have fields that are more than contact information? And then would you have any training needs? So training, all of our training is all freely available online, and we have probably 65, 70% of new clients self-educate, self-set up. Where you want a bit more support, we can either do hybrid training or we can do full-on webinar-based training. Hybrid training is where we send you some videos to watch, and then once you watch them, you connect with a member of our team for a short Q&A to make sure that we've answered all your questions. Webinar is more full-on, just working through everything. And you'll see here that our training is based on two things. There's what we call strategic planning and configuration training, and this is kind of what we call end user training, where we have a range of different topics that kind of an end user would work on. So there's a few options there, but then importantly, once you've kind of worked through all of that, on the side, it'll tell you based on what you've selected, this will be your year one cost with any setup services. And then assuming all your numbers stay the same, this is what you'll pay. And then over the page, you can actually have that sent to you as a PDF document. And then you'll be able to log back into that quote document at any time, play around with the numbers, adjust things, create a new PDF, have that sent to you. And the PDF is really handy in order to be able to, send to the CEO or the board or whoever that might be to help you out. So any questions about costs? All right. Well, if there's no other questions, just to let you know, if this has resonated with you, there are some other things that we can get going. So we will send you a follow-up email after today, just to kind of get a sense of. I think we're going to send you a copy of the video from this, so you can look back on this again. We'll have a few extra steps in there, but as I said, you can generate a quote for yourself. I would recommend that you do that. The other thing you can do on our website is create a trial account for yourself. So if you haven't already done that, please feel free to go in and do that. The trial account is really helpful because first of all, it gives you a sense of how easy the software is to use. And when you actually log into the trial, there's like a little educational bot that'll pop up and say, hey, what is it that you want to do first? And you'll be saying, well, I want to create some custom fields. And they'll say, great, here's how you do that. And you can play around within there. You can use that purely as a sandpit account, or you can start setting up the actual fields of information you think would be helpful for your organization. We have a lot of clients who come to us and say, we're ready to sign up, Andy. We've been working in a trial for a month now. We found it really easy. Can you convert all the work we've done in our trial to now be our brand new account? We just switch it over. They've already done all the hard work. They just move forward with all that work. It's not lost. Or if you would like to book up a discovery call for a bit more of a one-on-one with me, there'll be a link in the email that will give you a link straight into my calendar, and you are most welcome to do that as well. So any final questions from anybody?
Thank
All
you.
right.
Most informative. Thank you.
For the bad internet connection, but I appreciate your patience. I hope you were able to gather as much as you could from the little breakups. And certainly, please let me know if you have any other questions after the session.
Thanks, Andy. The breakups didn't affect anything at all, really. We've got all we need to know. We've got to go away and discuss it with our people, just as your past clients have done. Excellent. Fantastic. For your time. Yep, sounds like it's a good buy.
Yeah.
Yep. No worries.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy.